Early era Oceania. The myth, the meme, the nation. Perhaps I have treated you harshly, or perhaps I have not. First off, I want to say thank you to the kind donations from members like you that have made this video possible. Let's check in with the final early era nation that has not been covered on the channel. Early era Oceania, coming of the Capricorns. Everything on land has a correspondence underwater. Just like the kingdoms formed on dry land, so did kingdoms form in the sea. And just like the wild rebelled against encroaching civilization, so did the first Triton kingdom suffer under the wrath of underwater wilds. Oceania is an underwater realm of wild half-men, animals, and guardians of kelp forests. But Oceania is also a realm of the shores, where the stormy sea meets the stable land. It is a nation of borders and transition, change, and adaptability. Most of its inhabitants have the ability to change their shape and cross the boundaries of the sea. Sirens, Capricorns, and Ichthysaurs all share the ability and affinity for change and adaptability. Sirens use it to change their shape and lure the unwary to watery graves. Capricorn and Ichthysaurs use it to raid and spread turmoil and chaos in coastal provinces. With the coming of the awakening god of the Capricorns, lead the half-men in conquest above as well as beneath the waves. The dominion of the ocean god increases turmoil in coastal provinces. For national features, we are a underwater amphibious race for the most part. Our military is amphibious half-men, light infantry, medium infantry. That's maybe a little stretching it there. We have sacred aphori ichthysaurs. For magic, we are very strong in nature. We are pretty strong in water and glamour, and we have a tiny amount of air and earth. Our mages get weaker on dry land. For priests, they are powerful underwater only. This means it is a priest level 2, and it loses some of that power when it comes up on land. For Dominion, we get +2 turmoil in coastal provinces, and we get +1 order in other provinces. From my testing, this +1 order in other seems to be other non-coastal land provinces, because in the test game behind us here, I have high turmoil, and I'm not seeing it being lowered in the sea at all. So I'm pretty certain that is the way that works. For scales and blesses, we have a turmoil limit of +1, and we have a growth limit of +1. Unfortunately, for buildings, we build primitive forts. This is similar to, say, Pangaea, where we only have that kind of cruddy little, very, very primitive fort. And we have temples that cost 300. Overall, this is okay, but we are quite let down by our troop choices, unfortunately. For sites, we have one site, the Grove of Aphros. This allows us to get our Aphroi Lord, our Aphroi Sacred Unit. Gives us 4 nature, a water gem, and a glamour gem. Pretty decent income here. We do have the national spell Grove Fortress, so these nature gems especially are very, very key for us. Units and sacreds. This is where some of our problems kind of start. So we have the Ichthysaur. This is an amphibious, stealthy, recuperation, undisciplined troop. He is wielding a bronze spear, length 3, attack 10, 14 piercing damage. For early era, this is okay, nothing great. Unfortunately, the combination of undisciplined and 8 morale is really gonna hurt. That is very painful. 8 morale is hard to patch up. Even our best leader is going to give us a +1, so that's very iffy. That's very hard. Especially we're undisciplined, so they're just going to run off and do whatever. They're very fast, so they're going to run in and get themselves in trouble, and we can't control that at all. This is a pretty bad troop. Next up, we have the Ichthysaur can also be recruited in coastal forts. This is a similar guy, but he has picked up a turtle shell shield, and he is 1 higher morale. Otherwise, exceedingly similar here. Again, combination of 9 morale and undisciplined, that hurts quite a bit. Not a very good troop, unfortunately. Finally, for our infantry, we have the Ichthyosaur Warrior, can also be recruited in coastal forts. This is by far our best option, and that should worry you already. This is a amphibian with recuperation. We're still at 9 morale, but now at least we've put on some armor. We have a turtle shell hauberk in addition to the shield. So we have 9 protection on the body. We have, I guess, technically 2 on the head from our natural protection, but we're not wearing a helmet. This is rough. This is really, really rough. I think we lose a little bit of our speed. Yeah, we go down to 12 speed when we are on land, and in our land form, we are poor amphibian, but that doesn't actually matter because we go back to normal amphibian, I believe, when we go underwater, so kind of a weird transformation thing there. As we can see here, we are a full amphibian underwater. This is who you're going to have to use. At least they're not undisciplined. At least they have a little bit of armor. I think we are really looking at magic and flanking to make the magic happen for this nation. Next up, we have the Ichthyosaur. These are pretty decent. Amphibian, has recuperation. We have a bronze lance. Remember, the lance gets that additional bonus on the charge. He has turtle shell barding, turtle cap, and turtle shell shield. This is a pretty decent troop. Coming in here with 12 overall, 12 or 13 protection for only 8 resources. That's actually pretty good. That's a good value there. Their recruitment points are not going to break the bank, nor is the gold. 30 gold for this is fine. I like that they have the lance specifically. As I mentioned on the previous troop, we're probably going to be kind of counting on doing some flanking to actually get some killing power in there. Do note, though, we still only have 10 attack value, so this isn't like stupendous or anything. Next up, we have the Ichthyosaur. This is like a centaur, but he's icky. He has a bronze spear. He's a little bit worse with it, but he hits way harder. He is wearing shark skin armor, so he at least has a little something. He has the amphibian, the recuperation, and berserk +3. With berserk +3, that's going to take his natural protection up to 7. So he'll have 7 on the head and probably like 12, well, probably 13 or 14 on the body once that's added together. This is a okay unit. I think if you wanted to mix a few of these into your lines, that would not be bad. Gives you a little bit more stabby power, although size 2 means only 2 in a square, and they're not the highest attack. So maybe a little ball of these guys in the middle, surrounded by lots of your smaller guys to help get harass penalties, could be a thing. Again, they're going to lose some combat speed when they are on dry land and they can't use their fishy tail. Finally, we have the Afroy. This is our cap-only sacred, and it's actually a pretty good sacred. So 55 gold, only 15 resources, 30 recruitment points. You get 24 HP, 14 strength, 16 defense. This is pretty good stat line here in just raw stats. We're using coral barding and a turtle shell shield. The coral barding is not the worst. That's okay. So right off the bat, we can see here we have 4 head protection from our natural protection, and our body has 14. Not the best, not the worst. We're sacred, we have amphibious, we have recuperation. Recuperation is really good on any troop that's kind of survivable, and I think this counts. They'll keep you in the running, and we can make ourselves a little more survivable. Recuperation is one of those things that you would love on every single unit if you could possibly get it. So that is a strength of Oceania, that we do have just kind of blanket recuperation. We also have poison barbs. This unit's covered with poisonous barbs. Anyone striking it with a short weapon, no more than length 1, will get poisoned. This is actually okay. Underwater, you tend to see people using either daggers, natural attacks, or spears. So Shark Tribe is one of the more spooky units underwater. We will poison the heck out of them. We'll probably get stabbed to death anyways, but at least they'll probably die to the poison as we go down too. 21 speed's fine. Again, we're going to lose a little bit of that when we go above water. Yeah, not too much to say about this. This is solid enough. I do think you are going to end up getting a bless, because what else are you going to use down here? Like, this is not a good troop. This is not a good troop. On the weird fringe benefit, I suppose we could say their defense is okay at 13. And if they can survive and level up, getting an extra attack and an extra defense skill, that would actually be pretty helpful for them. But, I mean, that's that's a pretty weak high point for a unit. If you can survive for 2 levels as a line troop, that's pretty iffy there. Heroes, commanders, and prophet. As you can see down here, we do not have any to my knowledge. I didn't get any in my test games, and my Show Nation mod is not showing me anything. Not a surprise there. There's still several nations that have been left behind. This is not a new nation, and for it not to have any heroes is disappointing. For our commanders, we have a decent little spread here. We have the Ichthyosaur Scout. It's a pretty standard scout unit. I do appreciate he's only 30 gold, and you get an amphibious scout that is 40 stealthy. That's fine, and has recuperation. Maybe that he could keep himself alive if he gets diseased. We confirmed that recuperation can take diseases off, so that's actually kind of nice to have for a scout. Otherwise, he's actually over armored for a scout, weirdly enough. I would like that if he didn't have that equipment. Next up, we have the Ichthyosaur Commander. This can also be recruited in coastal forts. Again, he's our more armored guy, which is good, but he's only got 50 leadership, so no formations, no bonus to squad morale. He has recuperation. He is stealthy, so we could, in theory, lead around some stealthy troops. Do note our better troops are not stealthy, so you're probably looking at this guy. I mean, I guess you could jump on some low PD, but anything beyond that's probably beyond that group. Next up, we have the Ichthyosaur Commander. The Ichthyosaur Commander has amphibious, has recuperation. He's wearing the decent gear, although note not the barb stuff of our sacreds. So he has 17 head protection, 12 body protection. That's pretty decent. Has 100 leadership, so he can actually have a +1. The 3 squads is nice. I tend to have 2 squads of some cavalry or a squad split in half, essentially. So 2 squads flanking around, depending on what I'm fighting, either hold an attack rear or maybe even hold an attack closest just to flank in and try to get a wrap around the middle line. This is a serviceable unit. 125 gold, 9 resources, 1 recruitment point. That's also affordable. Not too bad. Next up, we have the Siren. This can also be recruited in coastal forts. This is probably your main mage recruit. Water 2 is pretty good underwater. We can water power up to water 3, which lets us do full-size water elementals if we can get there. That's pretty decent. Water elementals are excellent underwater because they get the underwater regen, which is great. We have Glamour 2. Glamour 2 is okay. We can Twilight if we are feeling it. We could throw some other glamour spells. I do think that's pretty decent for our nation. Warrior illusions are probably better than our line troops. So if we wanted to maybe try to rush for some of those and really heavily supplement our front line with some of those and then some water elementals, that could be okay. There isn't a particularly great water glamour cross path. There's the water cobbled that you can summon that gives you like a sailing troop. That's not helpful for us. Beyond that, not really much there, unfortunately. Otherwise, we have 13 research, and our morale is, or our upkeep cost is 212 per year. So that is far below our efficiency line. Now, it should be noted when we go on land, we change our magic pathing, we lose a water and we gain an air. So there is an argument to be made for Alquils if you can get some air income. So we would definitely like to find some. As mentioned, we are amphibians. We have Awe 3. That's not too bad. Otherwise, kind of humanish stat line up here, though. So despite the good Awe, I don't think you're looking at like thugs or anything. This is not the best pathing, although not the worst pathing ever for a thug, but doesn't have the base stats to back it up. She is Stealthy 65. That is really nice. Has the recuperation and has Chaos Recruit 20. This is actually pretty decent. So for every chaos or for every turmoil scale that you have, you lower the cost to recruit. So natively in the game behind us, I took Turmoil 3. So just right out of the gate from my capital, I got a 60 gold discount on recruiting sirens. That's not bad. Remember, we also get extra turmoil on coasts. So the one right here behind me is a Turmoil 5 province. So if I had that, that'd be 100 gold off. 165 gold for a pretty good combat mage is not bad, actually. I think we are very interested in getting some coastal recruitment centers up for the sirens. Do note, with our junky primitive forts, we cannot get these particularly fast. We need to summon in our special fort to get better recruitment there. Next up, we have the Afroi Hierophant. This is a priest level 1. He has a water or a nature. Those are okay. The nature, I think, a little bit more. I don't think you're getting a lot of these guys, though. 7 research or 76 gold a year is, let's call that efficient, but not quite. The problem is you can't really roll these guys out into war. Remember, we're in the early age, so Therados is the only spooky nation. If you were gonna fight Therados, this guy would be okay. It'd be fine to use him for the banishing and whatnot. Otherwise, he is stealthy. That is nice to have a priest or a temple/lab builder that can move around stealthy and get that done for you. Has recuperation, and he has inspirational +1. So I think rather than the Ichthyosaur, I would rather have these guys, because at least I can give a +1 to who they're leading, and neither one has formations anyways. There could be an argument made here for taking a leadership bless. You could get this high enough that he could have formations, and I think to do that, we would have to take, I think, 2 clicks of that blessing. So we would have a +3 to morale, and we'd be leading around extra troops. That wouldn't be the worst thing ever, but again, we're just patching up kind of a junky unit and trying to make it usable. Next up, we have the Haliade. Okay, the problem right first off the bat here is the Haliade is an aquatic. Her mount is aquatic, and she is aquatic. So that is a major pain. If you're in an ocean war and you have a way to get to your opponent, these are pretty decent mages. They come in with Water 2, Nature 2, Priest 2, and a random of Air, Water, Earth, Nature. So you could, in theory, get a Water 3. You could Water Power up to 4 and spam Water Elementals quite efficiently. That's not the worst. We also could do like Swarm and whatnot. That's pretty decent underwater. So a pretty decent underwater mage here. 15 research for 174 gold. That's not the worst. And if these weren't aquatic, I might consider it. But the fact that they're aquatic kind of kills it for me. And because you're on a mount, you can't give her... It's not... Yeah, you're just not getting out of the water. You're just not with these. It's not worth it. You'd have to put so many gems into it and make items that nobody else needs. Yeah, I don't know. I really wish that this was on theme with being amphibious. That would definitely help. Next up, we have the Capricorn, can also be recruited in coastal forts. Capricorn's pretty good. I do like this unit. It's very similar to like a Pan. 500 gold, 6 resources, 4 recruitment points. So it's going to take you a hot minute to recruit these guys, but they're not cap only, so that's nice. They come in with 2 water, 4 nature, and a random of air, water, or earth. At 10% the same plus a nature. 19 research for 400 gold per year. That upkeep is going to sneak up on you. Nope. Both him and your Siren have very high upkeep and are not sacred to knock that down. So while they're not the worst mages ever, they're still not like absolutely mind-blowing. They're also not super duper focused, and they have high upkeep. All things that are kind of holding us back for kind of the one good thing I'd say on the nation is pretty decent magic. Of course, he is an amphibian. He has Animal Awe 3, super overpowered. We have Poison Resistance 10. That is actually pretty interesting. We can natively cast Foul Vapors. Nobody else on our roster has native Poison Resistance, but we could summon some stuff in. Remember, we have high nature income. I think summoning some stuff in and doing a Foul Vapor play could be pretty interesting. You could take some Poison Resistance on your Bless, but you're kind of tipping your hand, I think, if people see that. I think it's better to probably just have a surprise where all of a sudden Foul Vapors from nowhere comes up. They are stealthy, of course. They have recuperation. They have nature magic, so they give supplies. Beastmaster +2. Again, maybe summoning in something that is poison resistant, and the extra Beastmaster gives them a total of +3 morale. That's not the worst ever. They do have Gift of Water Breathing 250, so you could bring a lot of troops underwater, but remember, if they're not amphibious natively, they're going to have a pretty strong penalty for being underwater and fighting. Also has Chaos Recruitment 30, So again, in a Chaos 3 or in a Turmoil 3 place, that's 90 gold off that price. And in a 5, that's 150 gold off. 350 for this mage is not bad. That's not bad. I don't mind that price, but that doesn't change your upkeep. So 400 gold a year is pretty dang pricey. That's a hard pill to swallow there. He wields a trident. I do think you could thug these guys. This is okay. Not stellar, but okay. So we would do like ideally Strength of Gaia, and then we would put up like Liquid Body, Quickness, Moss Body. Those are all options here. If they got the Earth, then they could do like the protection spells, the Temper Flesh. The air is less useful unless you boosted it up. Maybe Personal Flight. It's okay. Overall, I like this guy. He's not cap only, which is nice, even if we get him kind of slowly elsewhere. That's okay. He's wielding a trident, which he's actually okay with, and it hits pretty hard. I should mention, one thing I do like about this roster, everyone here is using piercing weapons. If you use a slashing weapon underwater, you take a penalty because it's hard to swing a weapon underwater. You want to use piercing weapons and stab. It just works better. So he does have that going for him, I suppose. Lastly, we have the Afroy Lord. This is our cap-only Sacred Commander. 205 gold, 17 resources, 1 recruitment point. He is Sacred, Amphibious, has Recuperation, has Poison Barbs 5, and is Inspirational +1. So +2 to who he's leading. This is definitely our leader of choice there. Can put people in formations, helps with the morale, has the decent gear on. Again, Poison Barbs isn't the worst thing ever. On land, you tend to see a lot of spears in early age, so once you're on land, it's a little iffy, but at least it's a Sacred that's amphibious and he's not aquatic. So he can get on land, and this is a respectable Sacred. This is fine. You know, he's similar to the other ones. It's fine. Usable, definitely can put a Bless on here and make them okay. Has 26 HP, so regen could be a possibility. They're fine. They're all right. Who would I make my prophet? In the most of my games, I have found that we expand absolutely miserably. So I think an Awake Expander is very tempting. And if you're going to have an Awake Expander, you're going to need Dominion. And if you need Dominion, you need to get your Prophet out ASAP. So you start with an Ichthyosaur Commander. I prophetize him right away, and he will probably die. Underwater is very, very stabby. Our troops are on the junk end of what's underwater. And flanking is actually more common underwater than on land, I find, with Independence. So pretty decent odds that that first guy dies. If when he does, I almost certainly would go with an Afroy Lord. If I didn't there, then maybe a Capricorn. For sure, I would not prophetize a Haliade because she cannot get on land to claim thrones. And in order to win the game, if you're playing with thrones, you need to get thrones. And yeah, there's only going to be so many underwater. You've got to get onto land. So overall, an okay command line, an okay amount of mages. We are inefficient researchers. We're okay mages, and we pay too much upkeep. It also should be noted, as mentioned up here, mage is weaker on dry land. We actually do a shapeshift and a pathing change. So here is a siren. So she trades a water for an air. That isn't really good. Double water would probably be better because we could throw some of the ice spells around. But this does open up a guaranteed way that we can craft Alquills. So that's something. Alquills would help us. We do have kind of some thuggy stuff, so maybe some other gear could be useful. For the Ichthyosaurs, or not the Ichthyosaurs, the Capricorns, he actually was a water 3 guy, and he lost a water and gained an earth when he came onto dry land. I came over here to summon a fortress. Should also be noted that the summoned in fortifications actually do give us a commander point. So we have 2 commander points at this fort. So we could actually get a Capricorn in 2 turns. So still slow to recruit, but if we built our regular forts, I don't believe that we get our extra commander point because we're using the primitive forts. So this would be 4 turns to get one of these. Pretty major consideration there. As you can see, this is a coastal fort in a forest. So I have Capricorns, I have Sirens, I have the Ictisators, and I have whatever the indies were. So this is my roster. Um, we have the guys that are undisciplined, and we have the slightly better guys. That's a rough roster. We can't even get our Ictisators. I really wish we could get our Ictisators in coastal forts, because I do think coastal forts are what we want to be getting. But yeah, that is what that is. That's unfortunate that we can't do that. National items and spells. As for national items, we have no national items. As for national spells, we have one national spell. We have Grow Fortress at level 0. Requires a Nature 4 mage to cast and 35 nature gems, and it grows that fort I showed you. Do note it can only be cast in forests or shallow seas. Do note that. So none of the deep sea provinces if you have those. Overall, I would highly prioritize this, because this is a better fort than what we can build. Notice this isn't a kelp fortress or a mud fortress or whatever. This is decent. Like I said, we do get the commander point from it. The admin's very weak. It is a bramble fort on land. Yeah, the voluntary is only 300. That's pretty sketchy. That's pretty sketchy. Do I have, like, if we look here, Giant Palisade. This is just the first rank, and it's already almost as good as we are. And they have another rank to build on top of that. So that is unfortunate. That is very unfortunate that we are behind the times. We do have the 300 gold temples, though. So that is something there. As for magic otherwise, I think it depends greatly on what you're doing. We have good nature, we have good glamour, and we have good water. Those are the three things that we're pretty decent at. We do have a little bit of cross-pathing between nature and water, which means naiads could be summoned from conjuration. Of course, I am blind because they are water first. So we can natively do this. We can roll these. I think the naiad warriors, 25 of them for 18 water gems is a good deal. These are good troops. Yeah, these are good troops here. And they do not die if they leave their home, so they do not have the homesickness problem. I think that's pretty interesting, and it's at 5. 5 is also a really interesting spot in Conjuration for us. We get full-sized elementals. We get sea trolls, another very good troop. I think sea trolls would be great. We have the Naiad Commanders, which are good, and we have Voice of Tiamat. I think Voice of Tiamat is probably something you want to either build for and or rush on any underwater nation. For a Water 2 mage at range 4, 8 water gems, which isn't too bad, you find all elemental sites. So fire, earth, air, water. You search those at rank 9. Very good. That is a way that you should be able to find some air gems. We have had streams, though. I think it was in the EA Atlantis, maybe. I Voice of Tiamat'd the entire ocean, and we either had like 1 air gem or 0. So don't necessarily count on finding, or fire or whatever. Don't necessarily count on this. Also note, it doesn't do the sorcerer path, so it's not searching astral or glamour, etc., etc. Beyond that, alteration can be pretty good. There's lots of underwater stuff that can be pretty handy. Gooey water is not terrible. Frozen heart is very spammable for us. Bone melter is another one that we are pretty good. It's only 5. You don't see this on a ton of nations, but it's a deadly spell. Area of Effect 1, Precision 3, so you will hit. It's only range 25, so you will hit where you're aiming. Only 20 fatigue cost is not bad. It deals 999 damage. You just literally liquefy bodies, essentially. It is magic resistance negates, so do know that. But this is a very decent spell, and I believe this can be cast underwater too. I don't think it is restricted in any way. Gift of Formlessness can grant slashing, blunt, and pierce resistance, and wound fan, but do note it lowers strength and combat speed. This would be pretty good for our line troops, who are pretty garbage anyways, just to keep them alive while other things get the work done. In the game behind us here, we'll talk more about it when we look at Pretenders, but I did go with an Awake Expander, and for Awake Expanders, there's a lot of stuff in Alteration you want, mainly the protection spells, the Quicken Self, the Enlarge can be useful. Moss Body is pretty decent. all really good things there. In evocation, we could be looking at some water stuff. Do note, we lose some of those water pathing when we go on land, though. So there's an off chance that we can get some of these 3s, but they're going to be more difficult than they may otherwise seem. We do have easy access to Cloud of Dreamless Slumber. It's only level 3. All of our sirens are guaranteed to be able to cast it. Range 30, area of effect 3+, so it's just going to be 3. High precision, low fatigue cost at 20, and it's a level 4 sleep cloud. This is okay normally, but you could have your sacreds take the Sleepless Bless from Glamour, and I think that's going to make the AI be very happy to cast this into things that they're fighting. And a sleeping unit is basically an auto hit, and they're not swinging back, so we could just stab hopefully one at a time and use this to chew through troops. That's interesting. That's pretty unique in that aspect. Because we have air and glamour, that also means, in theory, where are you? Wailing Winds is possible. So we would need to get up to glamour 3. We could spend 1 gem. Yeah, 1 gem to boost and 2 gems on the spell itself. So we would need 1 glamour booster to do it. But Wailing Winds wins games. Fear, this battlefield-wide fear is amazing, and we can do it. A single booster required is not that bad. Not that bad at all. Beyond those, Cleansing Water, if you do have to fight Therados, is pretty dang nasty. It's a big area of effect for decent armor negating damage. Very, very nice against them. Falling Frost, again, on land, you're not going to have a ton of water 3s. You're probably going to need boosters, or you're going to be spending gems to cast this. So a little bit on the iffier side there. Going down to enchantment, I don't see too much need for enchantment here. We do have a little bit of earth access. You could maybe get some strength of giants out, and that would help our troops. We do have a little bit of chance of getting earth and air for flying shield buff. That's a nice one. In this game, again, Awake Expander, I needed personal regen to be able to expand. So in the early game, I think this is pretty high if you go that route. Beyond that, I also... Where are you? No, down in Thaumaturgy. Another interesting one, we could go with the water spells that do fatigue play. So like Desiccation, Sailor's Death, those are okay. They're not the best. And again, water 3 is actually kind of deceptively hard for us. But there's some decent glamour stuff here. Personal Luck, I do think that's pretty decent. Sleep Spell, of course. Despair and Luck are pretty good. Despair is not bad. Air Effect is nice and large. It's nice and accurate. Very cheap. Just getting some more morale penalties out. And we can natively cast that on every siren pretty decently there. Another one is Scrying Pool. We have Water 1 and Glamour easily accessible on sirens. And this will allow us to scry on provinces. Do note that unlike the Astral version, if we fail or get caught or whatever, we're not going to get our Astral Cord clipped. So a pretty safe little one. It's relatively cheap too. Definitely worth it, I think, to get some scrying out. Beyond that, we do have the nature stuff. If we're summoning animals, maybe that's kind of interesting to you. We could cure disease, would be useful there. Gift of Reason is within reach for us. Ravenous Swarm is within reach. I should also mention Swarm is another thing from Alteration. And in Evocation, our Capricorns are better mages, but they don't have a ton to do. So here we'd probably be looking at Breath of the Dragon. Breath of the Dragon is a decent AoE armor negating poison spell. Not terrible. There's an off chance that we have nature and air. We could do Poison Cloud. Again, though, we're not all immune to poison, so we got to be a little careful with where we're throwing that around. And enchant also is where we get Foul Vapors, which every Capricorn can cast. So there is that. I do think that is something to consider, and we would be looking at casting Poison Ward on our armies ahead of time. The Serpent Blessing is all the way at 7 for our entire battlefield. 5 poison resistance, we're going to take some casualties, but I think we throw tons and tons of our junky troops in front of us or some summons, and then we Foul Vapors. I think that's a decent play there. Okay, bringing it all together. Well, as you can see, it's just not there, man. It's just not there. Our troops are not up to snuff. The Ichthycentaurs, which are okay, can't be recruited on coastal, which we kind of want to get to. We have very expensive mages, although we do have a refund mechanic. Like you can see right here, look at this. Turmoil 5 is pretty easy. I think that even if you don't want turmoil, your coastal provinces will have it anyway, so I think you should build for turmoil. So as you can see here, double fortune, double magic, just trying to make the best of whatever events I can get. I think we're going to want to summon things in with pretty high priority, so extra gems is nice. We want to prioritize getting forts on coastal forests, aka summoning them in. Those are only 35 nature gems each, so pretty darn cheap. I think we would like to get out and site search early for some water and nature, and then we'll transfer the water into water elementals and or Voice of Tiamat, and we'll turn the nature into summons, possibly that are poison resistant, and coastal forts. So because we summon our forts and we have 300 gold temples, that means it's only 900 gold to get all of our infrastructure. 900 gold and 35 nature gems. That's pretty cheap, actually. We are very incentivized, I think, to try to take as much of the coast as you can. But if you look at this game, now I did run a few turns without actually playing because I wanted to test something. But 1 forest, 2, 3, 4 on a hard throne, 5, 6. 6 is all the ones on here. In this game, Atlantis was in the other pond. This is my standard trolling seas. And I did try to go fight them, and they beat me. they just stomped me. Early era Atlantis troops are pretty decent, especially in underwater wars. So that was unfortunate. A bit on the weak side for sure. Disappointing that we don't have heroes. Disappointing that we only have one native spell and it's just a summon here. I would have loved to see something that our mages could do, especially the siren. I feel like a special siren national spell would be really cool and give us something to do, but it's just not there. Something that is water and glamour cross path would have been really helpful for this nation. At least our Capricorns have melt bones, so at least they have a decent spell to shoot for in a pathing that we generally kind of like. So I think for Oceania, we need to definitely take our pond ASAP, because we need the money income to be able to afford these expensive, low efficiency mages. We need the mages to get the research to try to summon things in or give us something in combat to do, because our troops just ain't it. We have decent sacreds that are not too expensive. If you take a peek at my scales here, you can see that even with Sloth 2 in my capital, I am perfectly fine. Well, almost perfectly fine. I was before I got my last temple up, getting plenty of those guys out. So ideally, we're going to expand enough that we can spam our sacreds. If we had extra resources, I would probably put it into Ichthycentaurs or maybe Ichthytars, depending on the circumstances. And I would be getting these Ichthyosaur warriors from my coastal forts where I can't get any of my better stuff. Early game is rough. Early game is really rough. Let's go take a look at pretenders. Another area that Oceania is let down, like many water nations, is our choice of physical forms. You can see here, I mean, there's just like nothing on this list. We do have, I think, just the one special one. We have the Aphroy Sage. So you could buy a pretender chassis that is Nature 1 for 160 points. Dominion 1, Nature 1. I guess at least he's stealthy and has recuperation for 160 points. No. No, that's not very efficient. I don't like that at all. Moving up to Dominion 3, we have a few Titan choices, but none of them do anything like super spectacular. I think Dracathena is probably the most interesting one. Maybe, I guess. Yeah, no Poison Cloud, no Free Spawn. She does have Fear, so that's something. I just don't like Titans. I think Titans are overpriced. We do have a Nereid. This is kind of a national one. 160 for her is the same price as the Aphroy Sage. Illwinter. This guy needs to be like 100 tops. Probably 80 for me to consider him. I mean, a Grand Hydromancer is water 1, 10 for a new path, so it's the same there, and he gives me a gem. Compared to this guy who we're paying 60 points for some stealth and some recuperation. That just ain't it. That just ain't it. At least for her, this is okay pathing. Do note, she's aquatic only. She has summons, but they are amphibious, and I think they're all aquatic actually, but they're not going to drown. So that's something. She has Dominion Strength 3, so I mean, as a Titan, of course. I don't know. Going back down to Dominion 2, I think we have two options here that are actually decent. And I think it's the Earth Serpent and, in my opinion, the Worm. I think the Worm is where it's at. We'll take a look at my Worm build here in a second. Going up to the Dominion 4s, Monolith, I think, is the best of these. You could get magic weapons, and then, I don't know, larger or regen or hard skin or whatever. We don't particularly have good sacred mages, so that's out. I think you're just taking stuff for your sacreds. You could make it kind of cheap. He's 210 points, though. That's okay. It's a little pricey. Again, we don't have native Holy Threes, so I would also kind of like to have a mobile god to help me claim thrones and whatnot. We're going to be claiming thrones on land where we're not particularly good at fighting, so if we have that opportunity, we need to get it and to clinch that victory. We can't be waiting around for teleport to be coming online or something. We have the Statue of War, who is kind of interesting in that he brings fire into the nation. That could be something vaguely useful. However, his monster summoner is going to be barbarians, and they're going to drown every single turn. Hilarious, but not useful. Statue of the Underworld at 150 is actually cheaper than the Demilich now after his price nerf. So there is that. The death scale negates our bonus growth scale, so that's no thing. 4 Dominion Strength with 3 death magic. I could see maybe taking Stygian Skin, or maybe taking Fear. I don't know. That's pretty pricey. Could be a thing at least. Otherwise, not particularly impressed with him. We do have the Protogenos of the Sea. 180 is not bad. Water 3 is okay. You could take something just really, really pricey, like, I don't know, maybe quickness. But do note, 80 for a new path. So it's going to really hurt. In fact, I'm not even sure we could do quickness on him, because that's not going to be enough bless points. Yeah, -1. So I guess you could go water 10, and we could be awake with quickness and a magic scale. That's actually not the worst. I mean, that would be my build probably if I went with him. I don't hate that. Do note though that our sacreds are not really worth it. They have a single attack. That would give them +2 attack. That would give them +2 defense. So I could see the argument. I could see that. That'll play. But do note, while he is not actually immobile, he actually can move, and he actually teleports, but he only can teleport underwater. Look down here. It is strongly connected to the sea and can never leave it, regardless of magical help. So if you needed somebody, I don't know if this guy's it. Zero protection. He is ethereal. Maybe he's a magical being, so that opens you up to some certain things. But if you wanted quickness, I mean, this is not the worst quickness build. Right off the gate, you could hopefully somehow clear your cap circle, and you could be recruiting however many resources you can get. In fact, we could even make that, since we're doing that heavy, I think I would probably do that, because I don't know if we're going to get enough resources with Sloth 2 to make 8 sacreds. But this wouldn't be bad. This is actually better than I thought it would be. That's okay. My preference, though, is actually the Worm, and it's going to be a very similar build. Let me just blink this back out. Very similar build to what I did with Early Age Pelagia. So we are going to go 6 here, and we're going to go 2 and 2. We're going to have Hard Skin. Hard Skin plus this chassis takes us to 21 protection. Do remember that you have to be in your own domain for your god to get your bless. But 21 protection, and then on top of that, we can add Bark Skin, Stone Skin, or Iron Skin. So that makes him actually pretty safe. As a just generic chassis, He comes in with 10% regen. He's an amphibian. He has fear. He has poison resistance. So somebody who could show up to those foul vapor fights, and his is high enough to be okay there. He has swamp survival. He's an inept crafter. He's an inept researcher, and he has unsurroundable 1. So that lowers your harassment penalty, which is great because we're going to use him as a super combatant. In addition to that, we are going to go Turmoil 3. We're going to go Sloth. We're going to go Cold. Note that the cold skills don't affect our income underwater. So ideally, we're going to get a lot of our money underwater, although some of it will definitely be coming from land. In fact, rather than rebuilding it like this, let me load in mine. Where you at, friendo? Yeah. So this is the one we used for Pelagia. This one's a little bit different. This is the worm that bites twice. For him, you have to pick between Water 3 or Nature 3, and the other one's going to be 2. Nature 2 is required because we need to have personal regeneration to be able to survive underwater. So an early game script is going to be something along the lines of whatever protection spell you have, personal regen, Breath of Winter gives you an 11 chill aura, which is fine for us. It gives us more cold resistant, and we are not cold-blooded, oddly enough. And that's going to really help freeze people and slow them down and tire them out while we're getting them feared. We do come in with 2 nice attacks, actually. It's a 23 with a death poison. This is actually really good. You generally kill 2 units per round with him, but that's too slow. You definitely need the Breath of Winter and the Fear to pull ahead. Beyond that, you could take Water Shield, which gives you some extra defense if you're underwater. You could take Temper Flesh, would be very good. It would help keep us alive. Quickness, Liquid Body. Liquid Body would be nice. It would add more to our affliction resistance. We're getting this from our high earth magic. In this case, I went with Hardskin and Reinvigoration. That works okay for our sacreds. You could trade out Reinvigoration for something else if you were so inclined. Low light vision could be something. You could Twilight, and then your sacreds could still have low light vision. You could take some extra HP. You could take some poison resistance. That would up his even more, and would give your sacreds a little leg up if that's what you wanted to do. But he expands okay. Okay, not great. It's a clincher every single fight, especially if you're outside of your own dominion and you're not getting hard skin. So you really, really, really want to push your dominion out if you're using an Awake Expander, and this guy is no exception to that. I do think that this is a decent build. Yeah, he is okay. All right, in conclusion, early era Oceania, it's on the weaker side, for sure. I would say this is one of, if not the weakest nation in early age. They do have a few things going for them. The mages are fine, if a bit overpriced. Their sacred's pretty good, but not stellar. They have some usable troops, but they're not good. They have an interesting thing with this turmoil thing, so we could get turmoil 5, which is kind of interesting. That we could just have that. Could be pretty decent. Getting the lots of events, especially if you tilt yourself towards it, could be pretty nice. I don't know. It's rough. It's rough. I do think that they stay rough in middle age too. We'll look at those when we get there, but essentially we armor up a little more, and that's about it. So, Oceania, a nation that struggles. If you have any tips, I know some community members have been playing, and I think somebody's playing Oceania in one of those games. So if you have a better bless, if you know the secret sauce that I can't figure out, please share it in the comments, because this is a nation that I don't know whether everyone just likes to torture me or if people legitimately love this nation. Maybe it's the little fish on their flag that they really like. But Wet Pangaea, I think I'd rather play Pangaea if I got the choice. Okay, builders, hopefully this is at least somewhat thought-provoking for you. This is the final nation that needs to be covered for me to say I have officially covered every early era nation. Next up, although don't put me on the clock, will be a tier list of nations. Should be kind of cool for early era. Okay, I will catch you in the next one, builders. Get out there and make sure that your Minotaur can swim.